All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 4:30 p.m. Central Time, and it's time for our office hours here on the Academy. I'm Johan, Andrew's Andrew. As usual, we absolutely love your questions. As you probably can see, we're trying out a different layout today. The Restream platform that we're using as a shiny upgrade. We're still trying to work out a little bit where things are, but fingers crossed we'll get through this nicely. And that being said, good sir, how are things in the Intune world and ConfigMgr world and everything in between?
Oh, pretty good. As usual, things are always busy. Things are always changing. I had a couple of what I think are pretty fun updates that I came across that I'd be happy to share with everybody. So let's see. Let me get. There we go. Oh, I just lost. There we go. Got your audio back.
Working on it. Give me a moment, sir.
Yep.
How about that?
There we go. We got audio. We've got a screen. It's all good. So, first things first that I came across now, if you've been, with us on office hours for a while or seen Johan and I at, on some of our trainings or at a conference, you may know that we have a pretty strong focus on the Windows side of things. But I am always happy to see, since we're talking more and more about Intune these days, I'm always happy to see additional Intune functionality on the Mac side as well. And as you see here on the screen, came across this announcement earlier today, though it was from a couple of days ago, that Intune's remote help capabilities are offering full control support for Mac OS devices. So for those of you that are managing Mac OS devices and have remote help licensed in your organization, I'm sure this is welcome news. Improvements are always a good thing in my view. Let's see what else we had. Also on the Intune side of things, I saw this announcement in a couple of different places, but specifically I came across Daniel Bradley's blog post on a new feature, or rather an improvement into how Microsoft is using the supersedence option in applications in Intune. So now they have added the ability to auto-update applications using supersedence, where the application was set to available to the user and manually installed by the user, which is a big deal. So if you are, say you put out Firefox, what version are we on now? 275 or,
1,000, yeah.
exactly. And 276,000 comes out, and you have that set as a superseded, you supersede your application, have this option selected, then those users that did choose to install Firefox are going to get an auto update. So Daniel had a nice post here on that option that's showing up, as well as a number of different scenarios for supersedence and this feature. So kudos, Daniel. Thank you for writing up this post. Last but not least, one of our favorite Intune tools, and there are many, I must say. I should say one of our favorite Intune community tools from Michael Carlson, the Intune Management tool, had a minor update 2 days ago, it looks like. So a couple of things to note here. There was a new feature for ignoring some properties and assignments if you wanted to. A number of fixes as well. But the major thing that I wanted to point out, and I think we discussed this a couple of weeks ago, was that the default Intune Management application that's been used in Entra for many, many years now has been decommissioned. The Intune PowerShell app, I should say, with this app ID. That has been decommissioned. And so now the default application that the Intune management tool is using is the Microsoft Graph PowerShell app with this ID here. Right there. Go ahead and highlight that. So this is, I think, an expected change, hopefully an expected change for you, but it is in fact a change. So I wanted to draw some attention to that. This will automatically be used. If you do want to register a new app, you can follow the documentation here to use your own custom application. If you are already using a custom application, there should be no changes at all to the app. So just a couple of things to draw your attention to there, and a couple of exciting updates in the Intune world. I've got a feeling, based on some of the news that was coming out over the last 36 hours, I've got an idea of what you're going to talk about today, though, Johan. Because I know you wanted to talk about it a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, badly also, but it is nice to see if I can get my screen on here, and here we are. Lovely, beautiful ConfigMgr 2403 was released. It's in early ring still, so if you want to opt in your lab environment, not production, they are supposed to be different. You have to run that PowerShell script first. It is not terribly complicated. Open up a PowerShell prompt, find the script in question. See if I put it in here. Apparently I did not. There we are. You run that script and you specify your site code or site server. That's it. And then when you refresh your check for updates, this one becomes available. It took me 2 attempts to install it because the first time I tried to run the installer, I was greeted with this lovely error message that, you know what, your code management slider is in pilot and you need to scoot that one over to Intune because resource access is no longer supported in this one. So, all right, fine. After doing that, I went over to my cloud services and properties. And I waited patiently because this one takes a while. Head over to my workloads here, and that one is all over in Intune land at the moment. And that allowed the setup to go through. I did see some other folks on Twitter having a little bit issue with permissions, and that's something I've seen over the years as well in ConfigMgr, where basically the account that happened to be logged in at the moment doesn't have access to the folder that ConfigMgr is using to stage the content, which is this one here. So should that ever happen to you, just assign your permissions to yourself and life will be good. You can go ahead and do the update. But a few things that stood out, of course, is the new global search that I really like, allowing to search across all different object types, collections, sequences, packages, you name it, in a single search. And of course, I was very excited to get full support for ARM deployments. So there is a new ARM boot image showing up. And as you can see, I'm using a extremely unsupported version of the ADK on this server. Because my plan was to start deploying or test deploying the Canary version of Windows 11 24H2. And then came the second problem, finding an ISO ARM with that version without having go through the hoops of basically leveraging suspect websites to get it being created for me. So for now, in my testing, I opted into the only ARM ISO I had available at the moment, and that was a 22H2 ARM. But I am looking into how we can obtain more recent versions of it. But that's if I go with properties on this one, it will definitely show you here in the images know that it is indeed an ARM architecture. And I'm going to create a few sequences and do some test deployments. I already learned that the export Windows driver command does not work at all on ARM devices. So I have to go the old school and create the packages myself for drivers. So I found them on the Lenovo website. I have an X13 model, Gen 1. That's it's an ARM device, and I created a WIM file with the drivers, the ARM drivers for that one, including all the fancy support that it needs. So hopefully tonight I will be able to deploy it. So quite excited about that.
Excellent. Is that the ThinkPad that is new to you?
Yeah, I found it on eBay and bought one.
Awesome.
And thanks to some help from Lenovo, I also found a dongle that is supposed to be compatible with Pixie and ARM and ConfigMgr. So we'll see.
All right.
Wish me luck.
Yeah, good luck. I'm looking forward to hearing the outcome.
So yeah, very excited about this one. So if you have a lab environment, get it going. If you have a production environment only, don't. And yeah, there we are.
That's pretty good general advice, I would say. I like it.
Yeah. So, do we have any questions coming in?
We do. We've got a number of hellos. So, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. We have our friend Mike Terrell joining us, of course. He's very happy to see that you have your drivers in WIM format. I must say, it's worth pointing out.
As you do, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Of course. But yes, we do have our first question as well. Matt is asking over here on YouTube, I'm looking for an Intune setting to disable Microsoft Word, spell check, or dictionary for schools before starting an exam.
Just in time configurations is not exactly Intune's forte, even though you can call remediation scripts on demand these days. That will probably have to be planned for a little bit in advance if you are, or to have certain configurations apply to a device or a user. So that I don't know how to configure something that is like just in time for an exam. It's not something I have done.
No, same here. I think, as you said, you'd have to deploy that ahead of time, and would be looking at, either putting out a custom config.xml or one of the other ways of just managing Office. Follow-up question from Matt: are there GPOs? So there are Office GPOs, of course, and as long as there is a setting for disabling spell check or dictionary, that would likely be a little bit quicker if you have the option of using a GPO.
Yeah.
You just have to dig into what the specific setting there are. There's so many different settings that you can set for Office applications, but I would expect that would be one of them. Got another question over here on YouTube. considering that HP abandoned SSM, how do you deploy BIOS and or special drivers?
Well, I'll be happy to answer that question. Here we are. It will be something like this. But this assumes that you have ConfigMgr. But you would create your various BIOS packages, you would create your various driver packages, whatever they may be, and deploy them from here. It's one way of dealing with it. Otherwise, of course, if you have an Intune only environment, you do have drivers and firmware there as well, including odd drivers, as long as they are listed under that model and you have that model filter. You can go ahead and approve them. See if I can log in here. So if I do have any drivers for an HP, for example, here, and head over to it, I have the recommended one listed first, but I can go into other drivers, and if there are any that are available, of course, I can go ahead and simply approve that particular driver right away from here and give it a date and be done with it. So both platforms does offer management of drivers quite effectively.
All right. Yeah, there was a follow-up that they don't have ConfigMgr, but any tricks for MDT and or Intune? I think you've got the Intune side covered there. Anything you'd like to add on MDT?
The challenge with MDT is that there is nothing to push to. There is no agent to run it from. MDT requires that it's initiated from the client side somehow, and the default behavior is to also require interaction. Whereas Intune and ConfigMgr does not require interaction. But in theory, sure, the same type of scripts that you use in ConfigMgr to download, extract the WIM file, and run, PnP util and install driver packages or drivers, you can do the same thing in MDT, but there is nothing ready-made for it, and I haven't seen any community solution for that either. It's always challenging when you don't have a management stack to work with. That being said, there is nothing wrong at all with using MDT to deploy Windows and use Intune to manage those devices. Intune doesn't really have imaging, so you need something. Yeah, we got some recommendations there in the chat. Look into the HP Image Assistant, as well as their library PowerShell module as well. Yeah, those are also great for automation.
Definitely. Sounds like Kylo agreed as well.
It appears that way.
He's dreaming about driver management, obviously.
Obviously.
All right. So hopefully a couple of those recommendations will help out there. Kurt's got a question here. I'll sort of talk through the scenario and then ask the question. So, must prevent 12,000 current state legacy devices from Entra joining and receiving Intune policies that will conflict with GPOs until they are replaced. If Entra registered, then I can block them from Intune enrollment at the Intune MAM level. How do I automate Entra registered so they can still get cloud features like OneDrive, M365 apps, SSO, conditional access? Are there any policies to do Entra registration only? And how can I automate Entra registered?
Yeah, I did get some heads up on this one. So I knew it was coming, but I don't have any good answers at the moment that require some additional research that I didn't have a chance to do. If anyone happened to know, please let us know, but it's not something that I have. I can serve for like this, you know.
No, definitely. And I think when we're talking about hybrid, the easiest way to automate that, and we may have touched on this a little bit last week, is either through Entra Connect or through group policy. But that's going to be the full enrollment. Yeah, I mean, maybe between the two of us, we can see if we can come up with something. But I have not done any automated Entra registration or come across anything, at least at this time, that I could add right away either. So we'll look into it and see if we can come up with anything.
Homework, yeah.
Indeed.
All right.
All right. So Siva is asking here, would we have a way to tie a laptop device to an employee ID so that no other employees could log into it in a domain environment? So my first thought goes right to using group policy to manage the local users group, but managing a one-to-one policy where you have one user effectively, where you're configuring one user per device, I think would be a challenge to manage and scale.
Last time I had to deal with this was, let's say, back in MD4 days.
Well,
So 3 decades ago. It was a school that there was an option on the computer object in NT4 to basically, or the user to say that you are only allowed to use this machine or the other way around. I wonder if that still exists, like in AD, because this was a domain question.
yeah.
Good Lord, I haven't looked into that in years. It's been a while. Log on to, yeah, yes. Ha! Old
You got
school
something.
coming back. All right. So here is a good old Active Directory users and computers celebrating 24 year today, 25 if you count the beta. But if I go to a user and go to account and log on to, I can say that the user can only log on to a given machine here. And everything you can do here, you can script. So you can have a script that looks up that information and forces this user to only be able to log on to this device. In general, there is a, what's that one? Yeah, the Active Directory Admin Center. When you poke around in this utility, to do whatever, like create a new user or computer, whatever. Andrew, I don't think you are my tenant.
Will be now.
So I created a user, but down here in the PowerShell history, it will now show me the commands that was required to do that. So maybe using something like that and configure and see what PowerShell gets generated here and write a script that looks them up, or ask ChatGPT or Copilot or someone to write it for you.
Yep.
But yeah, I have all sorts of flashbacks right now. I remember sitting in Excel generating CSV files so I can run the batch file and create users for that particular school on a Windows NT4 domain.
Oh my goodness. That must have been filed away back there. all coming to a head.
Yeah, say what you want about Microsoft, but they are pretty good in backwards compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
30 some years. Yeah.
Very good. All right. We've got a question from Noah here about piloting co-management. I have my first device there, and it's in pilot for software updates. Is there anything special I need to do in SCCM, or does everything flip to Intune automatically? And I think I can take that one.
Go ahead.
Because we've talked about this a couple of times, because there are definitely things that you want to double check, assuming, since we're talking about software updates, that is the workload that you've moved over to pilot. And yes, in theory, everything's supposed to magically flip and just work wonderfully, like all things do with Windows updates, of course. But
and then we have the real world, right?
That's right. We do have the real world. So a couple of things to look out for, because I did see Noah followed up saying anything in GPO that I might need to change. Absolutely. If you have anything set on that device or the devices that you are starting to pilot and move over, anything in group policy that you have set for disabling Windows updates or setting source or anything like that, set them back to not configured. You do not want the group policies configured. Similarly, though, again, it's supposed to work fine with co-management settings. If you have specific ConfigMgr update configurations in your client settings, for example, I would get rid of those as well and just move everything for those pilot collections, and then later on your full Intune collections, step back and set them to not configured. Now we have a couple of resources that we usually share on this topic. One is a blog post that I did a little while back that is now posted on the deployment research blog. This one is a little more right. I agree, Kylo. Windows updates, they just don't work all the time as you would expect.
See if I can request some help.
Do you mind throwing up my screen for a moment?
I don't mind at all.
He's very opinionated. He's got a lot of opinions about Windows updates.
As you do.
Of course.
Small horse, yeah.
I'm sure we could sit here and share our opinions for a little while as well. But I've got a blog post here that's now up on the deployment research blog. That's a little bit more basic, I would say. There's a CM pivot query to check for a number of registry keys that absolutely need to be changed over when you're piloting Windows Update for Business. So there's a CM pivot query here that will check those registry keys and see if they're set to 1. You really want them set to 0. So there's also a very simple, straightforward script that you can import into ConfigMgr here and run that on your devices to ensure that those registry keys are set to 0. Now, if you really, really want to deep dive, and I would not be surprised if you have to, Ben Whitmore wrote an encyclopedia on basically co-management, dual scan, scan source, a bunch of different settings and conflicts that you can run into. Phenomenal post. But it is a deep dive.
24 volumes, yeah.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. But if the resolution to the problem isn't here or in some of the supplemental links and resources that Ben has in this post, maybe just reimage the device and start from scratch. So I will make sure to share both of these links today. These are sort of the ones that I refer to often at this point.
All right, absolutely brilliant. Thought you would have a few words about that here.
That I would say, I am, as we've talked about on here, I'm a big proponent of that Windows Update workload moving over to Intune. Not for every organization, but the ones that we've worked with together and some that I've done on my own, we've had great success with moving that workload. But this was the biggest headache that I ran into, was things not moving over as you expected. And so you've got to track them down and you've got to do a little work troubleshooting. Once you get that sorted out, though, I've had a lot of good luck with this. So I am just making sure I copy off my links here. I do not want to forget to share those. All right. What else do we have here? We talked about piloting. Dan, a great contributor in the chat, as always, back to the configuration of Microsoft Word, looking at configuration XML for Office installs, as well as there was a policy maybe worth, Johan, do you see Dan's comment about user scope under the policy administrative templates? There's a path to a specific group policy. Maybe worth popping that up on the screen.
The allow login locally one?
The one that says, starts with user scope under the policy administrative templates, Microsoft Word 2016. It's a couple of comments below that.
User scope under, I think this one.
There we go. I thought it would be worth popping up there instead of me blabbing about the full path.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Yeah.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan, for sharing that. Let's see here. Trying to find, we had a lot of conversation coming in while I was chatting, which is fantastic. Thank you, everybody. We always love to see that.
All right, I'm going ahead and disable that one again.
All right. So came across a question here. Still wondering why OneDrive doesn't exclude PST files by default from a sync. What's our opinion to exclude files using GPO, using Intune? And a follow-up comment past that question. The dog is beautiful, and I would agree. He is.
Yeah.
In terms of excluding files
or file types,
File types, yeah. Have you ever configured any of those settings? I assume that they are out there.
There is an option in the admin center to block certain file types for being synced. Oh, good lord! I have not looked into that.
Yeah, because are you referring to the OneDrive Admin Center or SharePoint Admin Center? Maybe that's where the settings are.
Yeah, it could be.
Where you can set those globally. Let me see here. Let's see, is that under SharePoint?
Yeah, it should be in the OneDrive Admin Center.
I think I might have found it here. Nope, that's not what I want. Let's go here. And let's go here. No, thank you. I don't want a tour right now.
Are you sure?
Nice that's all right. I'll take a rain check. So in the SharePoint Admin Center, under Settings, and then OneDrive Sync, there's this option to block upload of specific file types. So here you could put, for example, PST. This is a global option, just FYI. That's probably the way that I would tackle it. Great reminder, Johan. Thank you.
Oh, speaking of reminders, good lord, Andrew, happy birthday, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
32 again? Is that the...
Yes, we're going to go with that.
Yeah. All right.
Absolutely. A few less white hairs in my beard back then, and so we're gonna stick with that.
Yeah.
But thank you. Good. I would not be spending would not rather spend my birthday any other way.
Well, I promise I will not sing. It's for the it's for the better.
I'll take your word for it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's see here. Back on track. So we've got a question. What do you do to get accurate device compliance with settings in Intune? The built-in reports are too limited or too hard to drill down. You have any opinions on that? So basically showing, I think, whether or not a setting has actually applied to a specific device is how I'm reading that.
I mean, that there are per setting information in the monitoring node, but I'm assuming that they want something different. So was this related to purely settings, or were the app installs also? I saw that comment flashing by.
So this question specifically says device compliance with settings.
I haven't seen any other reports for that from the community. Might be possible to create one based on data that you send up, but otherwise, I haven't stumbled across anything. At least not something free.
Yeah. All right. I've got another question from Noah here. We have a file that needs to be updated periodically for a program. Can I just place the new file in the package and update distribution points and it'll go down automatically? Or are there any settings on that specific package? Need to update every few weeks.
I mean, I have a few customers that are updating content for an app all the time and just redeploy it out like a rerun always. So that should be doable.
Right.
Or have a watcher on a folder when the file gets updated, trigger an update with the DP and trigger a rerun on the client of that package. Can be done from the server side. I mean, that's basically how we do app testing for 2 When we do a lot of deployment, we have a script server side that just runs installer after installer after installer on a lot of machines and a lot of apps at the same time to basically have to do our testing. So yeah, that's doable.
All right. And then, yeah, I'm coming up here on that question that you mentioned. What is the best way to figure out why an app in Intune is stuck at waiting for install status?
I will be poking around in the log file for the IME agent, figure out what that is. Obviously, you can provide your own logging for that. You can have something on the client that parses that log and send out that data into, log analytics or something to get additional info. Something like that.
All right.
Reviewing that log file is the only thing that comes to mind. I don't remember seeing any event logs or events for the install status. I think everything is in that log.
Sounds good. Then we had a couple of other questions about OneDrive and PST. Is there a way to override blocking sync of PSTs? And while it seems OneDrive blocks PST sync by default, is that true? No, from what I'm seeing here, PST files are supported, but they are synced less frequently compared to other file types to reduce network traffic. So that's right from the documentation. So I think that was the root of the question on how do we actually block PSTs if we want to. So by default, according to Microsoft's documentation, it does not look like PSTs are blocked from syncing. And I see a number of happy birthday wishes in here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, everybody. Noah's got a suggestion here on doing a small class on PowerShell app deployment toolkit. A bit tricky at times, but would love to see a good run through.
Well, yeah, that would be a nice demo, if anything. I know that Matthias and what's the guy from the team? They did a few videos that are up on the MS Endpoint Manager website or YouTube channel. They did a 4-part series on using it. That was if you haven't seen those, highly recommend.
Yeah, I've just dug up the playlist as well, so I can add that to our links.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and it recently got a new update too, the 3.10 something version.
Yep. Diego is asking here on YouTube, have you ever configured an Intune scenario with Entra, Join, and ADFS? Have a customer that has this configuration and not working properly with the hybrid scenario?
Thankfully, no, I haven't.
Yeah, I hate to laugh, but I feel exactly the same. I mean, I've been out of any ADFS environments for several years now, thankfully.
And you don't miss them at all.
No, I do not. So I think most of what you'll find, and Diego, I'll fully acknowledge that this is not a super helpful answer to your specific question, but I think most of what you'll find is more of guidance to just get rid of ADFS. Easier said than done. That's why I say it's probably not super helpful, but I think that's a lot of what you'll come across if you haven't already.
Yeah.
Dan did have a follow-up question for Diego's password hash sync enabled. Maybe that will help some of your struggles.
All right. Anything else?
Let's see. I hope I didn't miss. I don't think we missed any questions. A lot of great conversation happening in here. But I think there were a lot of follow-up comments for others in the chat. But I think we've got our questions answered.
All right, then. Well, I don't see any other coming in either. So, thank you, Andrew, and thank you, everybody. Oh, there we are with a question. Mark is asking, what's the future of MDT? Doesn't look good at all, unfortunately. The community around it is strong, though. So as long as it works, and the community will be able to support you. But Microsoft is doing zilch, it looks like, in terms of MDT improvements. So don't expect that to happen anytime soon. Right now, the only way to deploy Windows supportedly is to use ConfigMgr, at least from Microsoft. Otherwise, you have to work with another vendor that provides you with the deployment solution. That was a question on Windows 12. We just came back from a week up in Redmond, Mike Terrell and I, and a bunch of other MVPs. And Mike's also very specific that there are no plans on Windows 12 at the moment. There are a lot of focus on Windows 11 24H2, though, that I'm very excited about. But that's a different story. Noah had a follow-up comment regarding going from version to version here with Windows. Supposed to be super simple. To some extent, some different versions that actually applies. Going from 10 to 10 today is easy through an enablement package. Going from certain 11 to other 11s is easy. But for most upgrades today, it's just royally painful to do these full in-place upgrades. It doesn't matter how you do it, it's still painful. So you need to put in that work, that testing, if you want to reduce that the number of failures for those upgrades. You can still do build and capture. There was a follow-up comment on that for images. The trend in the industry, however, is to work with thin images. That's what we see organizations are moving towards. But we still have customers that uses thick images and have to use thick images because of how they are working with those machines. It's simply not possible for them to do it in any other way. And I think that's going to be supported for, decades to come for organization that needs it. I don't see Microsoft just rewriting the entire setup engine to be very completely different, because it has stayed the same for 27 years, more or less. What we're doing today is basically what came in Vista in terms of setup.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
The dogs are awfully excited today.
Yeah, I mentioned Vista and they get all angry. So.
I like Noah had a comment here, the OS that shall not be named.
Yeah. I mean, in its own right, what we're seeing today, a lot of that was invented in that time frame. We're seeing the fruits of it now. It was just that it was a bit of a learning curve, to put it mildly.
Indeed.
Yeah. Mike is chiming in. What a royal pain the secure boot issues are going to be. Yeah, we can share that post. We talked about that last office hours, but if I bring up my screen here, Mike and Gary has been relentlessly testing and play around with these scenarios to basically mitigate issues around a known vulnerability in Windows. And it is just very, very interesting to deal with, since you need to do, depending on how you apply the fixes, 6 or 7 different reboots just to get it fully activated. Our recommendation for now is to still stay the heck away from this part. Just don't do it. You will find your machines in a state where you cannot boot them onto pretty much anything anymore, other than the hard drive. That part works great. So, but for now, by all means, enable the early mitigations, step 1 and step 2. But learn about this, read about this. Microsoft is emphasizing in their blog post that Gary does reference here as well, that they are planning on providing good guidance in the July timeframe for this, tools and guidance. But this right now is it's a mess. But learn about it, learn what the limitations are, learn how machines in your environment works with this, because this is going to be one of those lovely per model, per BIOS combination. As some vendors already announced, there is a known issues list in the end of this blog post that if you're on this vendor with this model, you have to do a BIOS update. I think VM1 was one of them as well, having troubles with this. So we'll see. We'll see. But thank you, Mike, for the friendly reminder. But this is, yeah. Well, we have to earn our living somehow, so why not this?
That's right. Keep things interesting.
Yeah. All right, then. That means that we are close to up on the hour here. So once again, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Andrew. And again, happy birthday, sir. And I'll expect that you have the evening off, and I'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for all the birthday wishes in the chat, and a couple of very nice comments from folks as well. So thank you, Johan, and thank you everybody for joining. Have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thanks. Bye.